Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'll tell you, the moment I heard about that saline discovery involving Britt Westbourne, I nearly set my coffee down and said, well, now that changes everything. After watching soaps for years, you develop a sense for when a story is about to take a sharp turn, and this feels exactly like one of those moments. What looked like a tragic decline may actually be hiding something far more unexpected and perhaps far more hopeful. From where I'm sitting, Detective Joe Fitzpatrick's discovery of saline solution in Britt's medication opens the door to a completely different explanation for everything we've been seeing. Britt has been convinced for a long time that Huntington's disease was slowly taking control of her body. When she collapsed while hiding out with Rocco in the Virgin Islands, it seemed to confirm her worst fears. Honestly, I probably would have thought the same thing if I were in her shoes. After all, when someone expects bad news, every symptom starts to look like proof that the worst is happening. But here's where things get interesting. If Britt has only been receiving saline instead of the treatment she believed she was getting, then a lot of assumptions suddenly come into question. The more I think about it, the more I wonder if Britt has been living under a terrifying misunderstanding. For months, she has believed that Ross Cullum and Jen Sidwell's experimental serum was helping keep her condition under control. Yet if the injections were never what she thought they were, then perhaps the entire foundation of that belief is about to crumble. What really grabs my attention is the simple logic of the situation. If Britt truly had advanced Huntington's disease and was only receiving saline, how could she have remained stable for this long? That question keeps echoing in my mind. As folks in America sometimes say, something just doesn't pass the smell test. The facts don't seem to line up. The story almost feels like a giant puzzle where one missing piece has suddenly appeared on the table. And then comes the possibility that nobody can ignore pregnancy. Now that would be the kind of twist that sends shockwaves through poor Charles. Britt's recent collapse, her physical symptoms, her exhaustion, suddenly those signs can be viewed through an entirely different lens. What if the symptoms everyone feared were related to Huntington's disease are actually signs of a pregnancy that Britt never expected? I can only imagine the emotional storm that realization would bring. One minute you're preparing yourself for a devastating future, and the next you're faced with news that could completely transform your life. What makes this storyline especially powerful to me is the emotional contrast. Britt has spent so much time believing that her future was limited, that her disease was writing the final chapters of her story. That kind of burden changes a person. It affects every decision, every relationship, every dream. If she learns that she may not be facing the fate she feared, it would be more than just a medical revelation. It would be a second chance at life itself. The more I think about it, the more I feel this storyline has the potential to become one of the most emotional arcs General Hospital has delivered in quite some time. Britt has always been a fighter, but fighting against a disease is very different from discovering that the battle may never have been what you thought it was. If the truth is finally coming to light, then Britt may soon find herself standing at the beginning of a completely new journey rather than the end of one. And for a character who has endured as much heartbreak as she has, that possibility feels both surprising and deeply moving. I have to say, the more I think about Britt's collapse in that cabin, the more convinced I become that there is much more going on than anyone realizes. For weeks, viewers have been led to believe that her health scare was connected to Huntington's disease. Britt herself certainly believed that was the case. After all, she has spent a long time fearing that the disease was slowly taking away her future. Every moment of weakness, every dizzy spell, and every physical setback probably felt like another sign that her condition was getting worse. But now that the truth about the saline solution is beginning to emerge, I can't help wondering if everyone has been looking at this situation from the wrong angle. When Britt collapsed while hiding with Rocco, it seemed like a straightforward medical emergency. However, when I look at the circumstances surrounding that moment, I see a woman carrying an enormous amount of stress on her shoulders. She wasn't resting comfortably at home, surrounded by friends and family. She was isolated, frightened, and constantly worried about what might happen next. Every day she woke up knowing that discovery could completely change her life. That kind of pressure can take a serious toll on a person's body, even if they are perfectly healthy. What really stands out to me is the fact that Britt was acting as the only responsible adult in an extremely dangerous situation. She wasn't just protecting herself, she was protecting Rocco as well. That responsibility alone would be enough to overwhelm many people. She had to think about where they would go, how they would stay hidden, and what would happen if someone found them. In the best case scenario, Lulu and Dante would locate them and Britt could find herself facing accusations of kidnapping. Even if her intentions were good, explaining her actions would not be easy. The worst case scenario is even more frightening. Britt knows that Ross Cullum and Jen Sidwell are still looming in the background like dark clouds waiting for the right moment to strike. If either one of them managed to track down the cabin, the consequences could be deadly. That's the part of this story that keeps catching my attention. Britt wasn't simply running from a family dispute. She may have been running from people capable of causing serious harm. Living with that kind of fear day after day would leave anyone physically and emotionally exhausted. Because of all this, I find the pregnancy theory incredibly interesting. Many women experience dizziness, weakness, trembling, and even fainting during pregnancy, especially during the early stages. Those symptoms become even more pronounced when stress enters the equation. Britt has been dealing with fear, uncertainty, lack of stability, and emotional exhaustion, all at the same time. If she is pregnant, her body could have been struggling to keep up with everything she has been enduring. What makes this possibility even more believable is that Britt may not have recognized the signs herself. Think about it for a moment. If someone believes they are suffering from a serious illness, they naturally interpret every symptom through that lens. A headache becomes evidence of the disease. Fatigue becomes evidence of the disease. Dizziness becomes evidence of the disease. Britt may have been so focused on Huntington's disease that she never stopped to consider another explanation. Sometimes people see exactly what they expect to see, especially when fear has shaped their thinking for a long time. I can already imagine the shock that would spread across Port Charles if this turns out to be true. Jason is expected to return in just a few weeks, and it would be classic General Hospital fashion for him to walk back into town only to discover that his life is about to change forever. He may return expecting to deal with threats from Sidwell, questions about Britt's disappearance, and the ongoing chaos surrounding Rocco. Instead, he could find himself facing the possibility of becoming a father again. What fascinates me most is what this would mean for Britt emotionally. For so long, she has believed that her future was shrinking. She has lived with fear, uncertainty, and the expectation that tragedy was waiting somewhere down the road. A pregnancy would completely transform that outlook. Suddenly, instead of focusing on what she might lose, she would have a reason to focus on what she could gain. The emotional shift would be enormous and could become one of the most powerful moments in Britt's entire story. As I look at all the clues, I can't shake the feeling that Britt's collapse was never meant to be viewed as a simple medical crisis. It may have been the first piece of a much larger puzzle. Between the saline discovery, the questions surrounding her diagnosis, the intense stress she has been experiencing, and Jason's upcoming return, the pieces seem to be falling into place. If Britt really is pregnant, then what appeared to be one of the darkest chapters of her life could soon become the beginning of something she never expected. And in true General Hospital fashion, that kind of life-changing revelation would arrive at exactly the moment nobody sees it coming. In the end, I believe there is a very real chance that Britt's collapse was not a sign that her body was failing her, but a sign that her life was changing in ways she never imagined. If Jason returns to Port Charles and discovers that Britt is carrying his child, the shock waves will be felt throughout the entire town. More importantly, it could give Britt something she thought she had lost long ago, hope for a future she never believed she would have.